Hello and welcome to NB Drives. My name is Nishmanya and today you join me in Coimbatore as I head towards Ooty on a road trip. And as you can probably tell from the car behind me, I am driving this Jaguar F-pace. Now, apologies, I couldn't find a great location to stop and film, so I'm just by the highway. But I am really excited to do this drive, especially because I've heard that there is some really nice and twisty roads, and I'm actually really glad to be doing it in a Jag because they are known for their handling. So there's going to be a fun trip. Join me for the adventure to come, and I'll keep updating you along the way. Since our drive began at the Coimbatore International Airport, we didn't take the traditional route out of Coimbatore towards Ooty, which is essentially getting on NH 181 and following it pretty much for the entire distance. Instead, we had to rely on the arterial and main state roads to get to NH 181, which was about a 20 odd kilometer detour. That is our first look at the hills that we are going to be driving up fairly shortly, and it looks like it's cloudy, maybe even raining that side, so this should be fun. Now, given that we weren't short on time and didn't mind going the extra distance to take the scenic route to Ooty, we were recommended by a local friend to take the route via Kotagiri, which was supposed to be very pretty and, as we soon found out, would be a very worthwhile detour for us to take. So just at the foothills of the Nilgiris, you are going to be stopped, as we were, by the local authorities to basically make an e-pass. The e-pass gets all the information about your car, the number of people, even the manufacturer of the car, basically because they want to control the amount of pollution in this area and they've restricted access to a certain degree. But it's not as intimidating as it looks. The people are fairly helpful around here. They will actually help you fill out the e-pass, and you're going to need it for your entire stay while you are here. So just keep it handy, and you don't have to pay any money. So if they do come and ask you for any, then be warned. At least we didn't have to make any payments. It's all done through the Tamil Nadu tourism website. I'll put a link for that in the description below. And now as we drive off, you can see the barricades where they do stop you. So just keep an eye out for these. And just like that, we're going to now start our climb up towards the twisty roads and up towards Ooty. And you can actually see that down on the maps here. We have a lot of twisties in front of us, so there's going to be a fun drive. And just a few minutes after setting off, we had to stop again because the view was looking so gorgeous and the road was just so empty. It was too tempting not to get out and take a few shots. These roads are just so nice to drive. The tarmac is being laid out really well, and to my surprise, it's been maintained also pretty well. Considering the no potholes, the runoffs are also fairly even, and this is just a really fun road to come driving on, especially in a car that enjoys corners, and this F-pace does enjoy corners. It's very eager to turn in, and it holds balance through the corner really well. Only thing I would say is you watch out for the larger vehicles, so that's the trucks and buses. They really cut lanes, and they keep you on your toes because it's a little safe coming out of blind corners especially. But as long as you have that in your mind, you'll probably be fine and you'll really enjoy this drive up. In dynamic mode, the steering offers a lot of feel through the added weight that comes in, and the turn in on the front end feels really precise for an SUV. Actually, scratch that, it's good for any car, but especially for an SUV, it feels very eager to turn in, and it's been a joy to drive. Here are some of the views that we got from the car. Hopefully you'll get a sense of the kind of roads you can expect on your way towards Ooty, especially once you're in the mountains. So we've just pulled over off the side of the road actually, and you can actually see the cars back there. It's a safe spot, not a blind bend or anything. Just because the view was so pretty, I just had to pull over. You can see that down there, little village, and it's so colorful. And then that's a tea estate with a winding road. Just gorgeous. And if you bear with me, I'll show you some of the twists and turns that we experienced on the way here. There you go. As I think you can see from this truck as example, there is altitude change as well as embankments on these turns. Makes it really fun to drive around. And then here's the view of the valley. Do know that just before we entered Kotagiri, there was another stop which asked us to show the e-pass that we had created, and unfortunately, as we weren't informed lower down, you cannot carry any plastic bottles into this area, and the one carry-on bottle that was given to us in the flight was left in the car. So when they spotted that, they did ask us to leave it there and find us about 20 rupee for the bottle. But this is something you should keep in mind if you're traveling by road in towards Ooty. The last 30 kilometers from Kotagiri to Ooty weren't as technical as the last section that we had driven. However, the nice flowing roads and the weather clearing up for us really helped us take in the gorgeous views of the Nilgiris. The scenery comprised of lush green mountains and valleys, bright blue skies and fluffy white clouds, with grey rain clouds also visible in the distance, threatening to strike at any moment. Before I move on, I do want to make a special mention of just how well this car drives. The Jaguar F-pace is a car that I've ridden in multiple times before, but this was the first time I was driving. And just to clear up, this isn't my car, it was a friend's car that was borrowed just for this trip. And my god, was it a fun drive. The 2-liter diesel had enough torque whenever you wanted it. The gearbox worked extremely well with the engine, and this Ingenium diesel engine is actually very refined. So much so that I didn't realize it was the diesel until a few kilometers into the drive when I looked down at the rev counter to realize that the red line was at 5000 RPM. And that is high praise for any diesel engine. The suspension is also extremely well judged despite not having air suspension or adaptive suspension. The regular springs and coilovers have been set up so well that at low speed it cushions almost all bad roads and imperfections, but as you push on it really hunkers down and gives you that sense of stability, especially in winding twisty roads like you encounter on mountains such as these. It's usually intimidating to get behind the wheel of any car and start trying to push it in the mountains, and while I am very careful with all cars that I drive, this one did seem to egg you on a little bit as it enjoyed the corners so much. I'd always heard that Jags are great driving machines, but after being behind the wheel of this car and spending a few days on this road trip with it, it really is something that I believe now. Before I sign off, it's only fair that I give you a tour of the car, and the F-pace is a car worth having a look at. So here are some of the things that I really enjoyed on the exterior. First up, that really large mesh grille in the front works so well for the proportions of this car, as do the twin J LED DRL headlights. They look really smart on this updated F-pace. Moving along the sides, I've always thought that the F-pace has had some gorgeous lines because they're so flowing and fluid. They look extremely natural. They don't look forced or overstyled by any means. But just look at that sloping roof line and that pronounced shoulder line. It looks so smart. Though the 19-inch wheels on this car, I'm not 100% sold on the design. From a distance, the 5 spokes look great, but they do have the aero blade inserts, which I know helps efficiency, but I am still not sold on aero blade on alloy wheels. The rear of the F-pace is also a very elegant affair. Those tail lights are very slim and have very sharp detailing in them, which really suits the overall aesthetic of the car. And that sportback like rear end also looks extremely fitting for a sporty SUV such as this. The interior of this specific F-pace is wrapped in plenty of tan leather, and in my opinion it suits the SUV so well. It looks very upmarket and very high quality, and when you get inside and start touching the various surfaces such as the padded dashboard or the switches which have this knurled finish, or even the steering wheel which has these aluminium finishes on the lower third spoke, as well as on the paddle shifters, which just feels so great, you really get a sense of how premium the interiors of this car are. And also the big Pivi Pro infotainment screen in the middle provides a lot of usability. It's got a slick interface, and most importantly it has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which for the very first time for me on a longish drive worked very flawlessly. I didn't have any issues with them. The electrically adjustable seats are also so comfortable, and in this model they had a heated function. I do wish that the ventilated seats came as standard. Another thing that I really liked were the really thick door cards, as it was a really comfortable place to be able to rest your hand on, especially as a passenger, and the twin stitching also made it look really high class, and it didn't hurt that it was padded, so you could comfortably rest your elbow on the door pad for long periods. The instrument cluster on this model didn't have the full digital instrument cluster and only had the large MID in the middle. It gave you all the information that you needed, however it's just not quite as configurable as the full digital unit that could be optioned on the F-pace. The Meridian sound system was phenomenal. I had a blast listening to tunes on this entire drive up, and it catered to all sorts of music because this was a trip done with friends, so we went through multiple different genres of music and really enjoyed ourselves. The rear seats of the F-pace were a place that I spent very little time on this trip. I was at the driver's seat for the majority of this entire drive and the few days that we spent with it, but I did get a few stints at the rear, and it is fairly comfortable in terms of cushioning, under thigh support and overall bolstering. Even the armrest is positioned in a very convenient spot for your elbow, but for me the knee room was a little tight, especially considering that up front I had friends that were also 6-footers, and me being a 6-footer, it just didn't leave a whole lot of knee room for the rear passenger. A neat trick on the F-pace though is the reclining rear seat, which is controlled by this little switch on the side, and while it's not a huge degree of recline, it does help the overall comfort, and the large glass roof really does help bring in a lot of light to the rear passenger. And in scenery such as this, it's just very nice to be able to recline and just look up at the mountains. The boot space was also quite impressive. At roughly around 600 liters, it took in all our luggage. Despite it being a short trip, we were all carrying large suitcases, and it swallowed all of that up without any issues. So I've made it to Ooty. As you saw from the last clip, we were driving through the center and it is quite crowded. I'm actually near the bus stand area, and we're gonna now just find a place to eat, a nice cafe or something, and we'll be heading off back towards Kannur. That's where we're staying. But you can see the weather is sort of playing to our favor. The clouds sort of dispersing, and you can see some blue skies. So yeah. So I've made it to the destination, which was Le Cafe, or the Periodic Table Cafe in Ooty. This is where we're going to have our lunch, and this is where I'll close out this vlog. And as you can see, the car has made it right there. It was an effortless drive, and it was so much fun coming up those mountain roads. But more importantly, you can look around here. It's got a lovely vibe. As I said before, the sky is giving a lot of contrast with those fluffy white clouds and the blue skies. And there's some really nice open outdoor seating for the cafe. So yeah, this is what you can expect from Ooty. I'll try and grab some more footage on my way out when we're heading back towards Kannur. But yeah, I'm very pleased with this entire place, and the drive was absolutely fantastic. I would recommend it 100%.